Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Swallowed Star 2 origin continent based on novel. So let's start. Xiangjia city had become much more prosperous than it was 100 eras ago. The incident where the indisputable first in transcendence of primal chaos realm, Great Saint Luo He, was punished to garrison Xiangjia city for 10,000 eras, had fermented over time. Even ordinary eternal true god families had heard of it. Small factions, major family branches, and eternal true god families willing to settle in Xiangjia city were growing in number. Many trades between the two ancient countries were also carried out here. For one, it was a border city, holding a geographical advantage. Secondly, it was safe. The bigger the trade, the more important safety became. Slaughter and plunder were common occurrences in the land of origin. But with Great Saint Luo He stationed in the city, who would dare to cause trouble here? Moyu General. Moyu General. Leading several trusted aides, Moyu Qingyang arrived at the garrison mansion, where the guards at the entrance showed great respect. Nowadays, Moyu Qingyang wielded tremendous power in Xiangjia city. More than 10 eras ago, after reaching eternal true god through the bloodline cultivation system, both Luo Feng and the primordial ancestor intended for him to manage some internal affairs of the city. The primordial ancestor was the deputy garrison commander. Under Luo Feng's command, the primordial ancestor represented him within the city. Moyu Qingyang held the position of inspection general, taking care of the many trifles within the city. Moyu General. Inside the garrison mansion, the servants showed great respect upon seeing Moyu Qingyang. Everyone knew he was the garrison's only direct disciple. Moyu Qingyang made his way unimpeded. He soon saw a figure sitting leisurely on a high building in the distance and immediately hurried over. Master. Moyu Qingyang arrived at the base of the pavilion and respectfully saluted. Come up. Luo Feng glanced at his disciple below and smiled. He was satisfied with this disciple he had taken in. Although Moyu Qingyang was less talented, under Morosa's meticulous teaching, he barely became a true god of void space after great difficulty. Even Morosa decided to let him switch to the easier bloodline cultivation system, and with focused resources, he had now also become an eternal true god. Being less talented was not important, character mattered more. As Luo Feng's only direct disciple in the land of origin, Moyu Qingyang had never misbehaved by using his master's fame. This was why even the primordial ancestor kept delegating authority to him. Moyu Qingyang soon ascended the pavilion and saw his master. His master appeared ordinary sitting there, but through Moyu Qingyang's law source sensing of heaven and earth, he could feel that many operating laws were subtly forming around his master as the center, synchronously operating. Qingyang, what brings you here? Luo Feng looked at his disciple with a smile. Disciple has spent a long time with Zhong Yunj of the Zhong family. We've discussed it, and I plan to visit her parents in the Zhong family. Afterward, we will also go together to Huyang city to visit my father, Moyu Qingyang said respectfully. Oh? Have you decided on that, Zhong Yunj? Luo Feng asked with a smile. Cultivators did not necessarily need a Daoist couple. Many lived their entire lives devoted solely to cultivation. A Daoist couple was more a companion of the spirit. Choosing a Daoist couple was a very cautious matter. Disciple has decided, Moyu Qingyang nodded. Luo Feng nodded, although that Zhong Yunj is from the royal family, she is very distantly related to the Wind Chapter God King. As my direct disciple, it is sufficient for you to marry her. The Wind Chapter God King was a first realm godly king, a guest elder god king of the Flame Wind ancient country, with considerable accumulations. His existence was nearly indistinguishable from that of the ancestral god of the Snow realm. Innumerable were the offspring of the royal family, and although Zhong Yunj was an eternal true god, he was also a branch of the main lineage of the royal family. However, too many generations separated him from the godly kings, so his status was not particularly high. Luo Feng immediately summoned Morosa. Whoosh! Morosa appeared in the pavilion in a flash. With a smiling face he asked, Did you want to see me, master? He also noticed Moyu Qingyang, who promptly paid his respects. The youngster Qingyang has taken a fancy to a girl from the Zhong family named Xiangjia, and is preparing to visit her parents, Luo Feng said with a smile. I know, Morosa knew much more than Luo Feng. I've advised him that cultivation should be his focus. Affairs of the heart will only distract him, but this time he is set on that Xiangjia. Since it's a formal visit to the Zhong family, you'll go on my behalf, Luo Feng told him. After all, you two are of the primal chaos realm. Your presence on my behalf will be enough of an honor for the Zhong family. More than a dozen eras ago, after Moyu Qingyang became an eternal true god through the bloodline cultivation system, Morosa, with Luo Feng's consent, quickly publicized his strength, revealing that he had broken through to the primal chaos realm. Luo Feng, as the foremost in transcending the primal chaos realm, had a newly promoted primal chaos realm cultivator by his side. This was quite a common and inconspicuous matter. After Morosa publicized his primal chaos realm strength, Luo Feng also formally appointed Moyu Qingyang his direct disciple of Morosa. Naturally, Luo Feng understood the affection between Morosa and Moyu Qingyang. All right, I will go on behalf of the master, Morosa immediately agreed. Thank you, second master, Moyu Qingyang said as well. You're my disciple after all. Morosa was still quite happy to do this. Suddenly, Luo Feng stretched out his hand and lightly tapped. A droplet of water flew from the tip of his finger and landed in the palm of Moyu Qingyang, turning into a water droplet mark that then vanished from sight. Moyu Qingyang was a bit puzzled. Luo Feng said, you will be heading to the Zhong family, and afterwards, you'll go to Huyang City. The journey is long, and if you encounter any dangers, this mark can be activated with a single thought to protect both of you thoroughly. Morosa's strength he could display was very limited, so Luo Feng still prepared a backup plan for his disciple. Thank you, Master, Moyu Qingyang expressed his gratitude. Sir, the noalpha.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Looking at this scene, Morosa muttered to himself, my master is simply transcendent of the primal chaos realm, whereas I am a true god king. But now, I can hardly see through his methods. Go now, Luo Feng nodded. Moyu Qingyang then respectfully took his leave, while Morosa remained in the pavilion. Master, shall I go alone? Morosa looked at his master. Remember, control the strength you show. Your limit is 5 to 6/10 of the strength of Marquis of Zhujiang, Luo Feng instructed through telepathy. Understood, Morosa nodded in comprehension, then I will go and prepare to set out with Qingyang. Luo Feng nodded. A disciple's marriage was something Luo Feng preferred not to get too involved in. Love was also the most splendid journey of his disciple's life. The treasured place, infinite space. Spiritual beings were entrenched there, while Luo Feng was at a distance. Their spiritual wills collided, fought, and slaughtered. Luo Feng did not use the Lai Yuan technique, but instead used some methods he had pondered over on his own, allowing his mind to be tainted by chaotic thoughts during the confrontation. That's about it, Luo Feng thought after a moment of struggle. All of his spiritual will condensed into a rolling star that came crashing down, directly crushing the vast spiritual power of the spiritual being. This crushing instantly obliterated more than 90%. Only a small amount of the purest spiritual power regathered. The 9th calamity has passed. A voice rang out in the consciousness of the tentacled creature, and an invisible force descended, nourishing its remaining spiritual power, and rapidly restoring it to full strength. The tentacled creature was thrilled at this moment. It had finally passed through the 1,000 calamities, each one very difficult. This 9th calamity involved being obliterated by Luo Feng over 1,000 times, until the infinite space finally recognized that its 9th calamity had passed. Luo Feng's expression changed slightly. How did it recover so quickly? We have clashed over 1,000 times, but we will not meet again, the tentacled creature said to Luo Feng before disappearing into thin air. Luo Feng pondered, not meet again. It seems it's about to disappear. Some of the native creatures in this infinite space were spiritual beings. Though they occupied a fixed place and could be continuously destroyed, only a very few reward points could be obtained with each defeat. The more times they were repelled, the more the reward points diminished, like the recent repelling that awarded Luo Feng only 0.001 points. Generally, after repelling a spiritual being over 1,000 times, it might disappear, never to appear again. The area Emperor Ming had delineated for me contained 3 spiritual beings. In 100 eras' time, 2 of the spiritual beings have already disappeared. The remaining 1 awards so few reward points for each repelling that they are negligible. Luo Feng thought to himself, it's time to leave. After all, the reward points generated by this place were minuscule, and their effect on honing his spiritual will was diminishing. During this 100 eras, I constantly honed myself combining the Lai Yuan technique with spiritual contamination, although my spiritual will has also improved somewhat. Still, I can't rely on the Lai Yuan technique alone to eradicate a spiritual being. These spiritual beings had an extremely strong vitality. Just as it seemed that the spiritual power of the opponent had been annihilated in an instant, remnants of spiritual will soon gathered again. No wonder it is said that, even with the spiritual will of the ultimate realm of God King casting top spiritual will secret techniques, there is only hope of eradicating a spiritual being. Whoosh! With a single step, Luo Feng was already a great distance away, flying hundreds of times faster than when he had first entered the infinite space. After just a few steps, he had already reached the edge of Emperor Ming's dominion. Your Majesty! Luo Feng greeted respectfully. With the protection of Emperor Ming, he was able to cultivate peacefully in the infinite space for his first 100 eras. A century's growth had given him the confidence to stand his ground in the infinite space. Oh, Luo He, Emperor Ming's will enveloped Luo Feng, somewhat surprised. Your spiritual will has grown significantly over this 100 eras, and is not far from the ultimate realm of the God King. Thanks to your Majesty's benevolence, I have been able to cultivate peacefully in the infinite space and have made such progress, Luo Feng replied. For a normal cultivator, the growth of spiritual will is extremely slow, or even stagnant, sometimes even regressing. Even with the Lai Yuan technique, Luo Feng spent most of his time using the Great Destruction Heart refining technique to constantly hone his spiritual will. Normally, it would take tens of thousands of eras to achieve the growth he had now. He first encountered spiritual contamination in the infinite space, being contaminated over and over again, each time refining away all impurities with the Lai Yuan technique. Constantly refined. After a century of such refining, Luo Feng's gains were naturally substantial. But the further it went, the less this method helped. The area granted to me by your Majesty originally contained 3 native creatures. Now, 2 of them have disappeared, and the last one awards very low reward points, Luo Feng said. Oh? You must have killed them many times, Emperor Ming replied. I have killed each of the 3 native creatures over 1,000 times, Luo Feng said. Generally, after more than 1,000 times, it's indeed possible for the native creatures to completely disappear, typically being moved to some distant part of the infinite space, Emperor Ming explained. Luo Feng understood. Moved somewhere else. With the vastness of the infinite space, the likelihood of encountering those 2 disappeared native creatures again was very low. I also gift a domain to the imperial clansmen early in their cultivation, and after that, they need to fend for themselves, Emperor Ming said. I also came to bid farewell to your Majesty, Luo Feng said. I'm ready to set out and establish my own territory. If you can achieve the ultimate realm of God Kings will in the primal chaos realm, that would be quite impressive. The infinite space values this greatly and will grant rewards, Emperor Ming said. I've painted some calamity beast diagrams in my spare time in the infinite space, so I'll give you one as a gift. As he spoke, a black and red scroll appeared out of thin air and flew towards Luo Feng. Even without unrolling it, Luo Feng could feel the powerful will contained within it. This is different from the common calamity beast diagrams. Luo Feng immediately understood that the calamity beast diagrams sold outside might have been painted by Emperor Ming in his early years. Luo Feng immediately received the scroll with respect. You must have seen Shadow of the Catastrophe Beast. But the shadow is different from the painting of the beast, Emperor Ming said. The painting is the image of the beast in the heart of the artist. Each artist has a different image in his heart. Thank you, Your Majesty, Luo Feng said gratefully. As it turned out, his master, Emperor Chu, and Emperor Ming did not get along well, but even so, Emperor Ming took such good care of him, and Luo Feng was naturally grateful. Soon after, Emperor Ming withdrew his consciousness. Luo Feng respectfully performed a bow and flew off, beginning his solo venture in the infinite space. In the treasure domain, infinite space, Luo Feng transformed into a streak of flowing light, flying at a speed hundreds of times faster than when he first arrived in the infinite space. And this was only the normal speed for traveling. This treasure domain is quite occupied in places with slightly more native creatures. If I want to establish my own territory, I must head to the most remote and desolate areas. Luo Feng decided on a direction and continued on his way. In places with many native creatures, a single region might have over 100 of them, enough for several godly kings to join forces and take it over. But in the remote and desolate lands, there might only be 1 or 2 native creatures in a large area. Because they are so few, they are only suitable for individual occupation. The biggest danger of occupying alone is encountering other invaders. Luo Feng had also been under the protection of Emperor Ming, cultivating in solitude for 100 eras before venturing out on his own. Whoosh! Luo He. This is the territory of the Flame-Wind Ancient Country's imperial clan. Please leave. This is the domain of the Thunder Ancient Country's imperial clan. Leave quickly. On his journey, Luo Feng tried his best to avoid areas occupied by major powers. When encountering immense consciousness, he would be warned and expelled. He had never again encountered anyone as willing to give him a piece of land as Emperor Ming was. After flying for a long time, he finally reached his destination. 100 Mist Lake. Luo Feng looked at the vast endless lake in front of him, with mist wafting about. 100 Mist Lake, extremely vast. In the earliest times, there were over 100 native creatures here. Later, the monarch of the Thunder Ancient Country monopolized this place, causing the number of native creatures here to continually decrease. Now, there are probably only a handful of creatures in the entire lake, Luo Feng pondered. This was a place that had been occupied by various powers. Because there were too few creatures and the area was too vast, major powers had lost interest. It was only lone cultivators, like Luo Feng, who would be interested. Begin a thorough investigation of 100 Mist Lake. Eternal life, unending death. Divide. With a single thought from Luo Feng, 9 avatars split off, flying in all directions, carefully searching for native creatures within the misty expanse. In infinite space, 19 origin great Daos are sealed. To perform truly powerful moves, one must carve out new paths for themselves. Over these past 100 eras, Luo Feng had also been attempting to open up the great Dao of life and death. This cultivation had progressed by leaps and bounds. His speed was much faster than when he contemplated the great Dao of life origin, and the great Dao of destruction origin. The reason for such a swiftness is multifaceted. Firstly, Luo Feng had already reached the pinnacle of primal chaos in both life and destruction pathways. With enough profound accumulation, merging into the great Dao of life and death made the comprehension naturally smooth. Secondly, deep in Luo Feng's heart, he truly believed that life and death are one, which is the path his spirit acknowledged. When becoming an eternal true God, Luo Feng's enlightenment was on the source of life and death. The first primal chaos realm move Luo Feng conceived was a blend of life and death, the blade technique heart honing. It was just because the supreme laws did not include the great Dao of life and death origin, that Luo Feng temporarily set it aside to concentrate on the other two. After all, both the great Dao of life origin and the great Dao of destruction origin existed and could be contemplated and observed. In Luo Feng's heart, these two origin great Daos are both fundamental and nourishment. Ultimately, they are both for the sake of opening up his own great Dao of life and death. The great Dao of life and death is indeed much more powerful, Luo Feng thought. With no clear origin great Dao to refer to, Luo Feng purely followed his heart, starting to merge some insights from the Daos of life and destruction, and naturally conceived many moves. I have been in the land of origin for about 160 eras. These past 100 eras have been the time of my deepest accumulations. Luo Feng was clear about his own progress. The great Tao of life and death is the integrated and evolved version of the two pathways of life and destruction, containing many of their advantages. But its downside is clear. The absence of a clear Tao means that Luo Feng does not know what the branches of the great Tao are. So far, he has conceived several godly king-level secret techniques in the great Tao of life and death, yet he still hasn't grasped a complete branch of the great Tao of life and death. Life has 6 branches, destruction has 6 branches, but Luo Feng can clearly watch, and has a definite direction. Luo Feng feels that if he tries deliberately, he fears he could achieve the godly king level within one era. But Luo Feng has a lot of patience. He follows the guidance of the Creator from the heritage of world life form. Focusing on honing his perception as the foundation, he continuously accumulates until he breaks through naturally. He does not pursue breakthroughs deliberately. The encounter in infinite space made me comprehend the great Tao of life and death sooner. Clearly, the great Tao of life and death indeed suits me better than life or destruction, Luo Feng surmised within his heart, having guessed this earlier since he always believed life and death are one, and without one, it would be incomplete. From this century of cultivation, it can be seen that practicing the great Tao of life and death is to come from behind and overtake. Without specific secret techniques, without great Tao enlightenment. Yet, his strength in the aspect of the great Tao of life and death is stronger than the other two. This also proves one point: the path that suits oneself best is the one that advances the fastest, Luo Feng thought. Godly kings usually focus on a single origin great Tao. Very few cultivate 2 of them. Because each cultivator has their own spiritual belief. Some cognitions inherently negate certain great Taos, and even develop antipathy for some paths. Forcing comprehension of them naturally results in extremely low efficiency. Like the mountain-sitting guest, who has his own path to follow. He had never been interested in controlling the primordial cosmos, or facing the great Tao of life origin, nor had he ever attempted to do so. I've completed the investigation. Using the technique of avatars, Luo Feng finally finished scouting 100 Mist Lake. Now, 2 godly kings occupy separate regions of 100 Mist Lake. Beyond their territories, there are 3 indigenous creatures, all quite distant from each other. Among these 3 indigenous creatures, 2 are relatively ordinary, similar to those I've engaged with before. But one is extremely powerful. It only sustained minor injuries despite my direct use of the Lai Yuan technique. These 3 indigenous creatures were 1 strong and 2 weak. Luo Feng was quite satisfied. He hoped for more powerful spiritual beings to hone himself. It'll be these 3. Although the 3 indigenous creatures were quite far apart, Luo Feng decided to take over all their regions. Using the technique of avatars, I shall occupy each indigenous creature's territory. Luo Feng's true body and his 2 avatars scattered, each occupying the territory of 1 indigenous creature. Asterisk 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 asterisk. In Flame Wind ancient country, within Windjong City, this place was also the ancestral land of the royal family Zhong family, where generations of the clan's descendants thrived and lived. Ha ha, brother Luo Sa, please. Xiangjia becoming Daoist couple with Moyu Qingyang is also a connection between our Zhong family and great Saint Luo He. Inside a grand hall of the Zhong family, the core leadership warmly hosted Morosa and Moyu Qingyang. Inside the hall, the 2 primal chaos overlords of the Zhong family made their appearance, sitting at the main table with Morosa, chatting and laughing with ease, showing a harmonious atmosphere. This lad Qingyang is a disciple of my master, and also my disciple, Morosa chuckled. Once Xiangjia and Qingyang become a Daoist couple, she will be like my half-disciple, too. Moyu Qingyang and Zhong Yunj sat at the lower end of the table, the 2 of them being the younger generation, just listened quietly. It seems both parties are getting along very well. Moyu Qingyang was pleased to see this scene. On his first visit to the Zhong family, they disapproved of him. But in the end, they welcomed him warmly. Although Zhong Yunj was from a main branch of the Zhong family, with the royal family having countless descendants, she was just one eternal true god among tens of thousands within the royal family and hence, not very conspicuous. I am not given much attention in the clan, Xiangjia transmitted her voice. The presence of the two primal chaos overlords is actually because of your status. It was quite significant whenever a primal chaos overlord made an appearance. As for the highest-ranking member of the Zhong family, the Wind Chapter God King, after all being a godly king, he did not need to get involved in the matter of two junior eternal true gods becoming a Daoist couple. Even if Great Saint Luo he were to become a godly king and truly turn into an overlord-level existence, the Wind Chapter God King did not need to overly curry favor. He had his own influence rooted in Flame Wind ancient country. Qingyang, from now on we are family, said Yunji's father warmly. As an ordinary eternal true god, his status within the clan was far less than those from the law lineage. But today, he was rather prominent. Even the two old primal chaos overlords were amiable towards him. Moyu Qingyang showed no hint of arrogance. He was well aware of his position. It was only through his second master's careful guidance that he became a true god of void space via the law lineage. Later on, with the help of his master and second master's resources, he was able to follow the bloodline cultivation system and become an eternal true god. In terms of cultivation potential, he indeed had little. His current status was purely because he was the only disciple of his master and second master. What was there to be proud of? Seeing this, Xiangjia also revealed a smile. She was committed to Moyu Qingyang as her Daoist couple. When she was first tasked with the royal family's trade in Xiangjia city and met Moyu Qingyang, he was flattered by all sides and held a very high status there. After spending more time together, she found Moyu Qingyang to be genuine, which gradually led her to develop feelings. To have reached eternal true god and still have no Daoist couple showed her intentions. Without someone suitable, she would prefer to cultivate alone forever. Moyu Qingyang felt the same way. Both had reached eternal true god level before choosing a Daoist couple. S.E.A. The novel, F.I.A.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. In the Treasure Land Infinite Space, as his disciple was about to get married, Luo Feng, as his master, remained wholly focused on cultivation. He was currently sitting cross-legged on an island in the middle of a lake, performing the Great Destruction Heart refining technique, to eradicate the spiritual pollution within himself. The stronger the spiritual beings, the stronger their corruption, he mused. Luo Feng could feel the effect on himself, as even his attempts to comprehend the great Taos were repeatedly disrupted by the spiritual pollution. Rumble tilde tilde tilde. Suddenly, a stream of consciousness touched the expanse of Luo Feng's awareness. This is my territory, leave immediately, Luo Feng conveyed his consciousness. Your territory. I've killed this indigenous creature's ancestor countless times. It has always been my place. That spiritual will, also reaching the second realm of godly king level, was embodied by a large figure in a yellow robe standing in the distance, looking at the island with a sneer. So it's Luo he. You, a transcendence of primal chaos realm, dare to dispute territory with me, an elder. If you don't want to die, then get lost quickly. Looking at him, Luo Feng's eyes grew cold. Let's see how much skill you, at the first realm of godly king, truly have in this infinite space. This video will end here.